I mean, we've got a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, Democratic governor, wildly Democratic courts. We've got certainty.
Well, I'm not sure certainty is very good in this case, because I think that basically the tax and the regulatory environment that was there over the last couple of decades was conducive to economic growth. We have one of the best business tax climates in the country, one of the lowest tax rates, tax burdens in the country. We still have. We are still ranked as one of the lowest taxed states in the country. And of course that reflects the most effective tax and spending limits. We've cut the
taxpayer
income tax.
bill rights Tabor, which is vilified from every direction.
We cut the sales tax, the income tax, the business personal property tax. So we've created a business tax climate that has been very attractive to business investment and jobs. But the question is, this is changing very rapidly, and I think we're moving towards a regulatory and tax and fiscal environment which is much worse in terms of the business tax climate.
All right, you're talking like an economist.
Right.
Bring it down to my level here.
Tom and I were talking before the show about some of the effects of regulatory policies, for example, in the energy sector. Essentially, we are supposed to go from 90% fossil fuels to 70% in the next decade. Now,
this is part of the clean, or the new energy economy,
exactly,
which really is nothing more than corporate welfare for guys who build propellers. But it says that a state where we get our good, cheap, reliable power from coal, in 10 years we're going to drop that down to only 70% from coal, and we're going to have to get it from feel-good sources otherwise, which many experts tell me is simply not possible.
Well, it's
not
possible,
cheaply,
but it's costly. Excel estimates an increase in electricity cost of 4 to 6%. Now the EPA, when they study this, when you increase electricity prices by that magnitude, it has a negative effect on output and employment, all the businesses that have to pay that higher cost. It's certainly going to have a negative effect on the coal industry. We're going to see a collapse of the coal industry in this state. And so everybody's talking about the new jobs created by the new energy economy. Nobody's willing to talk about the lost jobs in coal or all the businesses that now have to pay these higher energy prices. Another regulatory negative effect is in the oil and gas industry. The regulatory policies that Ritter has introduced is already having a negative effect on exploration and development in that industry. And as you know, one of my areas of expertise and interest is in tax and fiscal policy. And what amazes me is that even with this recovery, they're predicting a revenue shortfall in the next fiscal year. And there's a good explanation for this. Basically, the state has pursued very imprudent policies. They've taken a lot of one-time money and used it to fund ongoing programs.
Give me an example. Okay. Because, I mean, this is the kind of stuff where there are guys right now watching going, what the hell's that remote control? And so I want to make it clear. We're doing something here that affects all of us, in that the new tax policies and new regulatory policies of Ritter and the legislature, making it harder for a lot of people to get those jobs, because it's hard to open a business, it's hard to keep old businesses going, and there are new regulatory requirements, including electricity and on mining and on exploration, which are crippling these industries, which have been a backbone for Colorado. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And with regard to the one-time money, of course, the big elephant there is the stimulus bill, the federal stimulus money that's here for 2 years and it disappears after 2 years and you fall off a cliff. And not only that, what the feds are mandating is that the state must expand the Medicaid population and must expand the welfare population
under the new health care bill.
Under the stimulus bill. The Medicaid was mandated, every state must increase their Medicaid population under that stimulus bill. Now the feds said, we will pay for this for 2 years, but now after 2 years you have your Medicaid enrollments up here and the money disappears, and the state is going to be hit with a huge cost of Medicaid and, for that matter, welfare spending as a result of those kinds of mandates.
All right, so let me kick this back to you. So there's two things going on.
Yeah.
One, when you get a windfall, you know, your dad gives you an extra $100. If you're using that to pay rent, well, the next month you're going to need $100.
Right.
You don't want to use it for paying rent, but if you want to use it to pay down your credit card or to help buy you the big screen TV you're looking for, whatever it is, that's a one-time purchase. It's a capital purchase. That's good for one-time money. You're telling me that here in Colorado, we're getting all this one-time money from the feds, and we're not using it to buy capital stuff, you know, building a road, whatever it is. We're actually using it for ongoing expenses, which means when Daddy cuts us off from our allowance, we're going to be up a creek.
Yeah, certainly Medicaid is an ongoing program, and if you increase the expenditures for that program with this one-time money, now suddenly you're creating a structural deficit in the budget. Now, we could have done like Governor Perry in Texas, who said, I'll take the federal stimulus money, but I'll only use it for one-time expenditures, not for ongoing programs. We were stupid. We said, no, we'll take the money and we'll use it to finance these ongoing programs.
Wonderful. So back to your point of view, you know, he works for the government. He's fine. Your guys, not only your customers, but also at your association, Casey, these are guys who are the ones who pay the taxes to keep, you know, other guys afloat. What's going to happen in 2 years? If they know that there's going to be a budget shortfall here in a couple of years, the regulatory environment is awful for traditional businesses, and this last legislative session, we've raised taxes on every business imaginable. Do they stay? Do they go? Do they move? Do they just hunker down and wait for the economy to fall off the cliff, or the government? What goes on?
Or a change in elected representatives.
Tell me about that.
Well, I do think, and Barry and I were talking about this before the show, that we are going to see, I think, a substantial turnover in the fall of 2010 elections, with more pro-business people being elected. We have a legislature here in Colorado that is dominated by people who have no experience with business, don't care about business. They come from other professions, other walks of life. So when we as businessmen sit down and talk to them about these issues, it's very difficult for us. I mean, they're not very receptive to our ideas.
What ideas?
Reduce taxes, reduce regulation, the exact opposite of what they're doing and proposing.
But what they've been doing this last year feels good. We've now mandated, put a gun to the utility companies' heads and said, you know, most businesses, we don't tell them how to produce their product. You guys, we're going to tell you, you have to produce 30% of your product in a way that isn't economical. You can pass the cost along and it's going to go up. We just had a rate increase recently from Excel, and we're going to have more of them. And as we get towards this mandate, it's, you know, we're the state with the highest mandate for feel-good energy. That's going to be expensive. They don't get that this is going to cost jobs?
No, this does nothing to alleviate the uncertainty. It adds to it. So you're going to see a paralyzed small business community that is not at all willing to make any expansion moves, whether it be new personnel, new products, new equipment. We're not seeing it. When I say the loan portfolio has been flat for almost 3 years, there's the proof right there. We're seeing pay downs and not much new activity.
For those of us who don't follow it, the loan portfolio means how much money you're giving out.
We have at the bank, which is about $600 million. It's been about $600 million for almost 3 years.
And you'd want to see that higher? Because
absolutely. As Barry was pointing out, the prior 10 years, we probably had 5 to 7% growth every year. Steady growth. We're not seeing that. And I don't think any banks are. They're seeing shrinkage.
Don't ever say that to me.
And some of that is due to regulatory pressure. The regulators want the banks to reduce their amount of real estate lending exposure. I mean, that's good. I mean, that's a good objective, but that's going to take time.
All right. You say that we're a low-tax state. Let me beg to differ. Here in the West, we have smaller state governments, and we keep a lot of our government close to the people. That's in city governments, school districts, county governments, special districts, fire districts, water districts, library districts, cemetery districts. We have over 3,300 governments and special districts in this state. That's where government is. And so for people who scream, look, we're not overtaxed here in Colorado. Look how small our federal government or our state government is compared to New Jersey, which is it's mammoth, or New York, where it's mammoth. What they don't get is out here in the West, we don't have large state government because we have huge local governments that take a lot of our money. In fact, when you weigh that together, I believe the National Taxpayer Union puts us about the 13th most taxed or 17th most taxed, I forget one of those two numbers, in the country. At least that's where I've seen it before when you look at local taxes. Tell me about local government as well. It's not just what the guys you fight in the Capitol, is it?